Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Bora Winkel, President and CEO of the Building Industry Association of San Diego County. And we're going to spend an hour with you to take a look into a project called Riverwalk. I say Riverside because I used to work there, but this project is most certainly not located there. It is in Mission Valley, located on the old Riverwalk golf course. Many of you may remember the contours of the place when you once upon a time played there, and never imagined that one day it would have 4,300 new homes, 1 million square feet of office space, 152,000 feet of retail, and 97 acres of park and open space. The presentation that we're going to hear made are by the fine folks and members of Hines. We're going to hear from Pete Scheer, director of Hines, and also Eric Hepfer, who is managing director. Also on board to help us out today is Ted Shaw with the Atlantis Group and Craig Benedetto from California Strategies. I have very lengthy bios with me. The good news is these men are very eminently qualified to talk about this stuff. So pay attention. This is a really big deal, this project. 4,300 new homes projected in Riverwalk at a time when we talk about a housing crisis and an affordability crisis. This project appears to have it all. What caught me when I was sent this presentation and to talk about Riverwalk was that they are calling themselves San Diego's first truly transit-oriented village. That's a big deal because in California and in San Diego, we talk about TOD development all the time. So what is it? What does it look like? And how are the fine people of Hines going to implement this vision? And so with that, I'm going to turn this over to the fine folks at Hines, who will share with you, I believe, a video.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Eric Hepfer. I'm with Hines, and we are thrilled to be in front of you talking about Riverwalk today. It's been a long time in the making. We at Hines have been working on this project for about 4 years, and as Pete will share with you, there's been a vision for this site that's about 30 years in the making. So really exciting. There's been a lot of twists and turns along the way, which we'll talk about and share some of the stories with you. And the last thing I'll say is I wish we were here in person so we could meet all of you afterwards, but please do feel free to reach out to us with questions and definitely put questions in the chat, and we would love to answer them as much as we can. So with that, we'll dive in. I'll tell you just a little bit about Hines. Pete, if you can go to the next slide. We like to say that we're a local company with international reach. We're in most every major city in the world, about 200 all in, and we are the third largest investment manager in the real estate space with about 125 billion in assets under management. And so we've got 60 years of experience and a lot of reach that we can bring to bear on local projects. And so at the same time, we're a global firm. We're also a very, very local firm. Everyone working on Riverwalk lives in San Diego. We raise our families here, and we're involved in our communities and in our local BIA and all other associations in town. Here's a look at the various different product types that we're in. We like to say that we can do anything so long as it's real estate. And so you can see we've got a lot of office, a lot of living, a lot of land development, industrial, et cetera. We can go to the next slide. I'll show you what our San Diego experience looks like. We like to say that we do big game-changing projects. And so we came to San Diego 25 years ago and started doing some work for San Diego State with Tony Gwynn Stadium, which then led to serving as development manager for the San Diego Padres for Petco Park, which really redefined the East Village area. And from there, we moved into the La Jolla Commons development, which is a 3-building project. The 3rd building is about to break ground here soon. And we developed the first 2 in UTC and are very proud of that development. And now, of course, we're developing Riverwalk, which we'll talk about today. So we can go to the next slide. Here's just a quick agenda. We're planning to spend about 30 minutes in presentation mode. And as I said, hopefully you'll put questions in the chat as we're talking. But what we plan to cover is the vision for the project, the evolution of how it's come about, take you inside a little bit and walk you through a bit of the approval process and how that went, and then finally talk about next steps and answer your questions. So with that, let's jump in. So as Bora said, we aim to be San Diego's first truly transit-oriented village, which means we want to redefine the way people think about public transit and they think about their car. And the way we do that is to integrate transit into the heart of the project and make it a front door experience rather than a back door experience. And many projects that have been done, you have to walk out of the project, walk through a parking lot, maybe up some stairs, and get on the train. We wanted to bring the train right to the center of the project so it would be easy and convenient, and also build a place around the transit stop where you might want to go to make it an attractive place to be. And we want to prove that, in San Diego, a transit-oriented lifestyle is not only possible, but it actually could be preferable, especially at a place like Riverwalk, where you're minutes away from the major job centers of UTC and downtown. This is an overview of the project at its high level, and Bora mentioned the metrics, but to hit it again, 4,300 residential units, 1 million square feet of office, and 150,000 square feet of retail, all around nearly 100 acres of parks and open space. We think is really gives us an opportunity to do something special. So we'll talk about the objectives of the project now. We talked about transit. The next thing we want to do is really create a sense of place and community. We want Riverwalk to feel authentically and organically San Diego. We want it to feel like it's been there forever and it is ingrained into the neighborhood. And that brings me to the next point. We want to fit with our neighbors. And a big part of the approval process was making sure that we were respectful of the community around us so that Riverwalk fit in instead of really stuck out. Next, we want to enhance the environment. With the San Diego River running through the project, we get to restore the San Diego River environment, which is really exciting. And we also get to make a major dent in our city's climate action goals by building all this housing on transit. And finally, we want to address the housing crisis. The BIA is on the forefront of this, and we as developers have probably the best avenue to address our region's housing crisis by adding more housing, and that's exactly what we're going to do here at Riverwalk. So with that, I'll turn it over to Pete to take you into some of the details of the project and its history.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. And Riverwalk is a project that Heinz has been working on since 2016. We entered a partnership with the Levi Cushman family that has owned this site, which has been in various forms for over 100 years. Heinz partnered with the family with the express intention of creating the Riverwalk development. Like Eric mentioned, we are a global company, but everybody that works for the Heinz project and works on Riverwalk is local. We're all raising our families here and really excited to be able to contribute to the fabric of our community. So prior to Heinz, there's a pretty long history with this site. Those of you on the call, I like to say if you haven't worked on the Riverwalk project, you haven't been in San Diego long enough. So, I've learned a lot coming on to this project, and it predates me by quite a ways. When we took over in 2016, what was in place was what's known as the Levi Cushman Specific Plan. This was approved in 1987 during the same time as the original Mission Valley Community Plan. It was an era of a very different plan for Mission Valley. It was a much more intensive plan, not buildable today for a number of different reasons. It's like I said, from a different era. The plan back then was to channelize the San Diego River, build islands in the middle of the river, and then build high rises on those islands. The development was largely office space and hotel with a little bit of residential as a complementary use. For a number of different reasons, this project never came to fruition, but it was the entitlements in place when we took over. Various fits and starts for about 20 years until the early 2010s when the related company came in and looked at the site. This is a hand sketch of what their plan was. You see that, when the next developer came in, became a more residential development. But still, one of the things that sticks out to me on this plan is, how much development there is in and around the San Diego River. And also just, the network of buildings here is much less walkable than what we envisioned when we came on board. The density did drop by about a third. And then the next plan was from the Irvine Company in 2015. This here, is largely residential with a number of low-rise surface parked office buildings to the south of the San Diego River. And again, less open space, but I think the defining characteristic of this plan is just its lack of walkability. Huge super blocks of residential construction along Friars Road. So Heinz first plan in 2016, we started our process with the plan you see in front of you today. It was the equivalent of about 3,000 residential units. As Eric mentioned, we're at 4,300 today, so I'll talk to you how we got there. The first thing that we did was try to make this a walkable place. Mission Valley serves many purposes right now, but the number one purpose that it serves is the vehicle, and we want to turn that on its head. We want Western Mission Valley to be a place that is pedestrian oriented and pedestrian friendly. And so how do you achieve that? You divide those super blocks into smaller blocks. And so that's what you can see here on this plan. For a number of reasons, we had the retail core, the town center. We'll walk you through what that looks like today, over on the western edge of Villa Las Cumbres, and the transit stop there. In conversations with the city and in conversations with the community, this plan morphed over time, and I'll walk you through those quickly. But the first major change that we made was moving the transit stop to the center of the project and moving that center of gravity, the retail town center, around the transit stop. So really anchoring the development in the middle so that this whole neighborhood becomes transit oriented. This was the plan you see in front of you was when the just adopted 2019 Mission Valley Community Plan update was released. And so we were in the process of planning for what we had shown before, and the Mission Valley Community Plan update came in and added, a substantial amount of density to San Diego, to Mission Valley. And the city's goal was really higher density development, especially along transit. And so they pushed us from a plan that was 3,000 units to a plan that was north of 4,000 units. And we found a way to accommodate that. And notable at this time as well, in conversations with the stakeholders of the San Diego River Park Foundation, we got rid of about 13 acres of developable land south of the San Diego River that is now going to be park space. So I talked about the Mission Valley Community Plan update, and a big component of that was one major road called Villa Las Cumbres. Ted, are you able to talk a bit through the history of Villa Las Cumbres and how we solved that problem?
Yeah, happy to. Thanks, Pete. So for those of you who've been around for a while, you'll know that Villa Las Cumbres, as Pete outlined, was put into the Mission Valley Community Plan. And in the 80s, Interstate 8 and Friars Road were heavily trafficked during rush hour, and principally because they were the major east-west roadways cutting through the city. You didn't have State Route 52, so there was lots of congestion on Friars and Interstate 8. So Caltrans saw this as an opportunity to change the section of Interstate 8 between 163 and Interstate 5. And principally, they wanted to close the existing ramps, Hotel Circle and Taylor Street, and build a new interchange as shown here at the bottom of the screen in red. And the city took that as an opportunity to extend a road across the river up to Friars Road and Via Las Cumbres. It never really got past this level of design at that time. It was put into the Levi Cushman specific plan, but again, it wasn't really designed. So as part of our discussions with the city, we went back and started asking questions about why and what was important and how it could happen or not. So obviously they wanted the roadway in because they still saw value in having that connection across the valley. We went back and looked at it, talked with our neighbors, talked with MTS because they have the trolley tracks, talked to the Public Utilities Commission because they control tracks. We basically had 3 opportunities to address the road in that location as shown here, north-south. One is you could tunnel under the road, or under the tracks, excuse me. That would put you into the floodplain and the floodway, non-starter by code. You could take this 4-lane road and have it be an at-grade crossing of the trolley tracks. And from the CPUC standpoint, Public Utilities Commission, that's a non-starter. So the alternative is to bridge over. And this would have been a significant bridge. It would have had a deck elevation of over 60 feet. So while not the 805 bridge over the valley, it's a significant bridge, taller than the other bridges that cross the valley. It would have had to start at Friars Road and it would have ended on the south side at Hotel Circle South. So it would have been a significantly long bridge and a wide bridge. So 100 feet wide, 60 feet tall. Having that point of disagreement, Hines and the team went back and looked at an alternative that might be achieving the same goals without a big fight on the council floor and at Planning Commission. Ultimately, through hard work by the team, we came up with a location where the town center is, the retail core, where we could actually tunnel underneath the tracks and stay out of the floodway and reduce the length of the bridge from the where it says River Park below the transit stop. So the bridge is a significantly shorter bridge. It does a couple other things. It saves money. It is now a narrower bridge. It avoids bifurcating the MTS property, which is just to the west near that left-hand oval. And it avoids going through the MTS wetland mitigation they have on the south side of the valley. So with the Hines project, they will build the road down to the point where a bridge would start off. The remaining road is a regional facility, and Hines is committed to work with the city because they've designated a regional road to come up with all methods for funding that roadway at some point in the future. Future work will still need to be needed on final design and environmental clearance, but it's a far superior solution to the significant structure that would have been Via Las Cumbres.
Yeah, Ted, thank you for the background there. And you know, one thing I will say is the conversations with the city all along the way were productive and problem solving. So a testament to Mike Hansen and Elise Lowe and everyone at the city of San Diego to find a solution that really worked for everyone. Because what would have happened with the original Via Las Cumbres plan was you take this beautiful walkable community, this paradigm shift of transit-oriented development in San Diego, and you put the whole thing under a freeway overpass. And that just runs counter to placemaking, to pedestrian orientation, but also runs counter to, you know, really celebrating transit. So we're happy with the solution that we came up with here. And this is, you know, ultimately was the final change to our site plan. It required us moving a couple of the buildings on the south so that, you know, the future Via Las Cumbres, or now Street J, could come through and feel like part of a neighborhood as opposed to just in the middle of the park. But it also allowed us to really create a better pedestrian orientation on the western side of our property. So excited about that solution, but that was a major engineering hurdle that our team came through with the help of Ted, you know, working with the city of San Diego. So here is the land use plan that we have today. As I mentioned, this is as you can see, kind of built on the backs and the input of stakeholders, right? The stakeholders here were really three critical groups. It was the local community, the neighbors, the San Diego River Park Foundation, and the city of San Diego. From there, we created these proposed land uses. You can see residential on the east and the west, next to where the residential on the western side of Mission Valley exists today. And then that red around the transit stop becomes the mixed use Main Street core. We'll show some images of that in a second. You can see that about 100 acres of the property, about half the property, will be maintained as open space into perpetuity, creating one of the largest parks in San Diego history and providing 30 acres of dedicated habitat restoration around the San Diego River. And then finally, rounding out the mix of uses, adding an employment hub to the southeast corner, which works for a number of reasons, but one of them is, from a traffic standpoint, immediately adjacent to the I-8, direct access, makes for much better traffic conditions for Friars Road. So we'll fly through some images here, and then Eric and Craig can talk you through the approval process and what happens next. So to us, we've talked a lot about it, but this is more than just a transit station. We want to be the mixed use plaza, the heart of the development, really a gathering place for Western Mission Valley. We envision hosting farmers markets here, open air movies, live music on evenings and weekends. And we really believe that in order to change mode share, to get folks to use transit, to embrace transit, you have to activate those trolley stations, and you got to make that trip purposeful for them. So this is how we envision our transit station. I hope it looks a little different than the ones you've seen around town. Branching out from there, the entire development is really built around the pedestrian experience. We want to bring walkability and a sense of place to Mission Valley. So everything is designed at the human scale. It will prove to, like Eric said, that a car-free lifestyle is possible. We really believe it's preferable as well. Another image of that is sidewalk cafes, the interaction of the mix of uses with residential above the retail, really something that Mission Valley has not had to date. But with its location in the center of the city, we really see this as a place that is going to be redefined and really be one of the great places, the great neighborhoods of San Diego. Parks are a key component of the development. We'll have roughly 55 acres of publicly accessible park space at Riverwalk. We really believe strongly in the synergy between the built environment and park space, especially those retail uses that will come back after COVID. So here you can see a rendering of the extension of the San Diego River Trail that we will repurpose our golf course clubhouse immediately to the north of the river trail and create a node where folks can come and have a beer or lunch while walking or biking along the San Diego River Trail. We think that activation really brings to life both the trail as well as the retail, and that synergy it makes us some of the parts that's better than, or some that's better than the parts themselves. So the existing clubhouse here has a great future. This is the location immediately adjacent to the San Diego River, something you couldn't build again today. And we're excited about repurposing this as a brewery or restaurant concept, looking over the 80-acre park and the San Diego River as well. And we hand it over to Eric, and you can talk through the rest of the development, Eric.
Great. Yeah. So we want to talk for a minute about housing for all incomes, but also all generations. So we envision that there might be a senior component to Riverwalk, which we think could be really exciting. And then we want Riverwalk to be accessible to people of all income ranges. And so we have committed to doing 10% of all of our units as affordable on site. So that's 430 affordable units, which will make Riverwalk one of the largest affordable housing projects really in San Diego. And I'll point out here that the affordable units are going to look exactly like the market rate units. And so it's going to integrate seamlessly into the project. And we think it's really an exciting opportunity to get people into homes, into a great community. So we are proud of that. We'll run to the next slide here for a minute. And as Pete said, there also is an employment center component to this project. And so this is an image of what we think that could look like. And what's pretty interesting here, if you're a building technology person, is that these buildings are made out of heavy timber. And this is a technology that Hines has pioneered. It's called T3, which stands for Timber Transit and Technology. We've built several of these around the country, and they've been highly successful. They feel like an old warehouse brick and timber office building, but function like a state-of-the-art, highly energy efficient and space efficient office building. And so this is what we're envisioning for the office component of our project, and are very excited at the future of Mission Valley in the workplace for these projects to come in the future. And then, finally, we've hit on this a lot, so we'll hit on it a little bit again, but we're building the largest park accessible by trolley in San Diego. And we think that's important because not everybody has the ability to hop in their car and drive to some of the great parks in the city. But if you can get to a transit stop, you can get to Riverwalk, and you'll be able to walk off the train and walk right into what's going to be, we think, the jewel of Mission Valley, and be a phenomenal place for people to gather, to recreate, and to just experience life together along the San Diego River. And this is an image that just shows you how vast this project is. And most every building you see here is a Riverwalk building or a Riverwalk park. And so we're humbled by the opportunity that we have to develop this project. And we don't take it lightly. We know it's a great responsibility to produce something that will be great, that we can be proud of, and that San Diego can be proud of. So with that, I'll turn it over to Craig, who's going to talk a little bit about the approval process and how we went about that.
Thank you, Eric. As with anything, a project of this size, any development project, as you all know, is very difficult to get approved in normal circumstances. In this particular case, it's a very large project in a very central part of San Diego, so there were a lot of eyes on it. Obviously, you go through the planning group and the subcommittee process to get input, but there are other stakeholders, including neighbors and other stakeholders beyond the neighbors, that care about something of this size and nature. So we took a very proactive approach in engaging the community. We wanted to help them, help us basically make a project that was a combination of all of their interests and needs, as well as the economic needs of the developer. And so we did that over a 3+ year period of time. We held over 30 community meetings. We engaged them. We did design charrettes. We did the boards up and had people make comments and put their sticky dots on them. We met with over 100+ stakeholders outside of just the community planning group and those folks who were directly concerned about it. And in fact, Pete, Eric, and the team went into people's homes back when that was allowed. If you can imagine that was allowed at the time. They went and had coffee, and they looked at views, and they tried to understand from the perspective of the neighbors in particular what their concerns with. And we took those concerns to heart. On this slide, you'll see that there were a number of changes that were made in response to those neighbors' concerns. So we didn't just go out to meet with them to say that we could meet with them to have that talking point when we went to council, but to actually use the input and the feedback they provided and make changes to the project. And you can see there the list of changes, from the building height limits to the setbacks to the balancing of the density. Obviously, Friars Road was a huge issue to some of the neighbors in and around the community there. Pedestrian connections and making sure that was all put together. Private drive access and making sure that the circulation worked. The intensity and development, is this a bait and switch? A lot of folks don't trust the approval process. And surprise, surprise, they don't trust the development community either. And so, clarifying and making sure that there was a maximum development intensity level there so that they had that comfort that this wasn't a bait and switch, particularly given the large acreage of parks that were provided, that wasn't going to get converted into development in the future. And obviously the permanent maintenance of landscape medians. There's a history in San Diego where those medians don't get maintained. And so they didn't want to look at a bunch of burned out grass or dead trees. And we agreed to take care of all of that. If you can go to the next slide, please. Oh, one more back.
Yep.
There you go. So what did that all culminate into? It culminated into a very broad and diverse list of supporters. I'll let Eric talk about some of those supporters, but from the traditional business groups, obviously the planning group was in there as a key partner in this, but from the Circulate San Diego side to the transit side to the environmental side to even the YIMBY Democrats, to show a bipartisan flair, if you will, and including the climate action campaign because of all the things that we were doing to improve the environment and make sure that this community was built in an appropriate, sustainable manner. It also included the trade unions. So it was a very diverse and unusual combination of supporters that got a lot of attention at the council. So Eric, I'll let you kind of take it from there.
Yeah, the only thing really to add is that we had 3 different hearings in this project: Mission Valley Planning Group, Planning Commission, and City Council. And in no case was a negative vote cast against our project, which we are extremely grateful for, but we think reflects the broad group of support that we have here. And, you know, it's not every day that you've got labor, environment, business community all coming together to do something great. And we think that the input that each of these groups that you see here had on the project made it better in the long run. And so we're very excited that we're going to produce a lot of good, high-paying jobs here in San Diego, as well as do something good for the environment and make a dent in the housing crisis. So with that, maybe we can go to the next slide and talk about where do we start on this project and where do we go forward. And believe it or not, it's not the easiest task to look at a site plan like this and figure out where you should start. And we spent, I don't even know how many hours thinking about that question. And the answer that we've come up with is to start in the center and to create a place and a center of mass from day one. And so we've got an ambitious plan for phase one, which is about 900 residential units. As I said, some of those may be senior, around 100,000 square foot retail core, and which will have grocery, pharmacy, F&B. And we think that will create a sense of place for this community from day one that will create the momentum for the rest of the project. And so that is the plan, and we're excited to be moving forward with that. I looked at the chat here and saw a couple of questions about phase one. And so one of the questions was, when do we break ground? And the answer to that is likely early next year. We've got about a year's worth of design and permitting ahead of us. And the next question was, you know, what's your percent for sale or for rent? We're still working through that. This is a long-term development. Our first phase, we do know, will be all for rent, but there could be a for sale component at some time in the future. And another question I saw in here was, is this leasehold or fee simple? We do own the land, fee simple, in our venture with the family that Pete talked about at the beginning. And so that is how we control it. And so that is what we're envisioning to be phase one, and we are looking forward to making Riverwalk a reality, so we can meet you all there for a beer or a coffee. And so with that, we'll end our formal presentation and would love to answer any questions that are out there.
Okay, then I will be taking over from here. So thank you, Pete, Eric, Ted, and Craig. And Craig, boy, we really trained you well at the BIA. I mean, I'm such an admirer of your work. The question that appeared at the top of my screen was, it doesn't appear that there is an additional or enhanced on-off ramp for I-8 east and westbound, as was the plan with the quote-unquote expensive Via Las Cumbres bridge. Did I miss something?
I can take that one, Ted. You feel free to chime in as well. There is an extensive amount of study that needs to go on there before we're able to determine the right solution. And I say we here, it's really a team effort with the City of San Diego, Caltrans, MTS, Sandag, and then the local neighborhood. And so that's a process that Hines is going to kick off early in our development. We will be fully funding a project study report in conjunction with Caltrans and the City of San Diego to identify the solution, the final solution, the best solution for the I-8 west of the 163 all the way down to the I-5. One thing you realize is it's not just a Via Las Cumbres conversation. When you start pulling the string on Via Las Cumbres, you get into the hook ramps on I-8. When you start pulling the hook ramps there, you're into, well, Hotel Circle is meant to become a one-way couplet in the Mission Valley Community Plan. And so there is this integrated system that all needs to be designed, and Hines is going to take the lead on that as we start this development.
Well, thank you, Pete. So I believe your pioneering of timber in your office buildings has drawn quite a question here. Given your use of timber for the office buildings, have you looked into timber/CLT for the multifamily in lieu of podium or high rise? And the subsequent question is, or is it too costly for non-commercial properties?
So the answer is we have. And there's a couple of things at play here. The biggest issue with the CLT technology is column spacing. It works really well for office buildings. It's a little tougher to lay out multifamily with CLT just from a pure structural design standpoint. It is something that I think as the technology is enhanced, we might be able to get greater column spans and might be able to work through that. On the question of high rise, and you can absolutely do CLT high rise. And in fact, we are doing that in Australia. In California, we're not able to go above 85 feet due to fire code issues and earthquake and seismic things at this point. So we're limited in the height that we can do right now.
There's a lot going on with the building code on that front. Excited for a future where maybe we can do high-rise timber construction, and it's definitely something available elsewhere, but not yet in California.
People noted the labor logos on your presentation support and are wondering, what did it cost you to get that?
We're proud to have labor supporting the project. And as I think some questions were asked, do we have an agreement with labor? Yes, we do. And what I'll say is it's a mutually beneficial relationship, and we're excited to have good union paying jobs on our project. I think it's going to work out really well.
Yes, of course. Sticking to labor and environmental, but now going on environmental on you, what sort of renewable energy sustainability goals do you have for the project?
Eric, you can take the first stab at that, talk about some of the stuff you've done, and then we can talk about Riverwalk specifically.
Yeah, I would say we are, at Hines, we're constantly looking to push the envelope on sustainability. Our founder, Gerald Hines, was a mechanical engineer, and he would constantly be looking for ways to make the buildings more energy efficient. And so to that end, we have been founding members of LEED. We have a joint venture with the Well Living Lab and the Mayo Clinic to evaluate post-COVID building design. And personally, I developed a building here in San Diego, La Jolla Commons, that runs off fuel cells and actually converts methane biogas into electricity. So the short answer is there's not a one size fits all in terms of what the right technology is for the specific building, but we will be pushing the envelope. And now that we're through the entitlement, we can actually get into the specific technology designs, and we'll be moving that forward. But I can say we'll be pushing the envelope as we always do. Pete, I don't know if you have any specific building design at this point.
Yeah, it's still early in the concept design, so we're fleshing that out. Obviously, we'll be consistent with the climate action plan here in the city of San Diego. I would say what can't be looked past is just the transit orientation and the true belief that we have in that. 70% of greenhouse gas emissions come from the vehicle. So, everything we do on Title 24, everything we do on building efficiency is super important. That's basically the remainder of that. It's 60 to 7% comes from auto, and 30 to 40% comes from buildings. So it's very important that we focus on that as well. But from the outset, this is an environmentally sustainable development, and I think you can see that in the supporters that we've had here. The last thing I'll say is Hines is really focused on a new metric called embodied carbon, and that's something that we don't need to dive into the details on because we're still fleshing them out ourselves. But that's us looking towards the future of sustainability and something that we'll be cognizant of going forward.
Appreciate you said that. I mean, there's a question in here that goes deeper on the your energy use. About your energy plans, your use of renewables, and have you considered a microgrid?
We early in this project looked deeply at microgrid, on-site power generation, and a number of other opportunities you have because of the scale of the project. Long story short, there was a mathematical sense to something like that. And the reason for that is there is a very large upfront cost to any of those items. And how do you recoup those costs? Very difficult to do with the structure that you have, like Hines has on this project. So, that's something that I think, ultimately the capital markets are going to need to find a solution to. But no, the short answer is it's not something we're looking at this project.
Couple folks who've chimed in are looking forward to this project, but also hope that they might have an opportunity to work with you, bid on your work. How would they go about that? Are you building this yourself? Are you going to hire a GC? Are you the GC? Who's going to do what?
Eric, you go ahead and take that.
Sure. Yeah. So great question. And maybe the easiest thing to do would just be to make sure that I can put my email address here in the chat. So if there's folks that want to make sure they're included on our list, we'd love to just have you email me, and we'll make sure that's the case. To answer the specific question, we intend to have a master GC on this project. And then likely there'll be multiple general contractors doing the various components of it. We have a large infrastructure project to do here, and then multiple stick projects thereafter. And so there's a broad range of groups that will be needing to do that. So would love to have you reach out, and we could talk about it.
Are we okay with sharing the PowerPoint with membership on request?
I don't see any reason not to. Yeah, it's a giant file, so I'll need to turn it into a PDF, but I think we could probably send that out. It's also, all this information is essentially available on our website too. So another option that's always there is our email address is info@riverwalksd. It comes to my email personally. So if you want to get a hold of Eric, he's given you yours, but that one comes to me. And then, all the overview of what the development is going to be and what the timelines will look like as we progress forward will be available on that website, which is, again, riverwalksd.com.
A friendly broker asked the following question. When do you expect to break ground on the office component, and what will be the parking ratio?
So the first phase of the project, Eric showed you what we're thinking there. Multifamily with the ground floor retail. The office market in Mission Valley is we're all going through COVID. I don't think I need to dive into too much detail there, but we do believe strongly in the mix of uses here, office will be a key component of this. Employment uses will be a key component of this. So I think it's TBD on exactly when that gets constructed, but it will not be likely in the first phase. So parking ratios, this is something that we have a lot of good conversation about. Ultimately, we do hope that there is a shift in mode share so we can solve our climate crises and get folks taking the train, folks living in Mission Valley taking the San Diego River Trail, carpooling. Maybe there's true ride share in the future as well. So we'll continue to monitor those trends as we develop this, but we're cognizant that Mission Valley and really San Diego is a car-oriented market today, and that one project is not going to change that. So it's going to need to work and incentivize folks to jump on transit, but also work for the vehicle.
Here comes a flood control question.
Yes, our favorite.
Given the historic flooding of Fashion Valley Road, and its crossing of the rivers of the river, how are you going to deal with that problem?
Yeah, so flooding in general was one of the first. When we looked at this site in 2016, coming into an arrangement with the family, we looked at the site constraints, and with a 200-acre site, you have a lot of opportunity, but you do have some obvious constraints here. The MTS track runs east to west through the middle of the site, and then just south of that, the San Diego River runs east to west. So the site is kind of split into those three parts just naturally based on how it lays out right now. The San Diego River does flood. We all know it floods. The golf course is designed to flood. And Fashion Valley Road is also designed to flood today. That's what's known as an Arizona crossing. With this audience, I imagine many of you folks know the engineering better than I do, but the road as it's designed today is intended to flood. It has essentially 5 60-inch culverts underneath the road that are meant to handle a 2-year storm event. Who knows when the last time they were cleaned out? It floods basically every year now with any sizable storm event. So we think that crossing in today's format is likely a 1 or 2 year storm event. As part of our transportation improvement plan, we will be raising that section of Fashion Valley Road so that it floods far less frequently. And we need to do final engineering, but believe we can get between a 10 and 15 year storm event. So 5 to 10 times the capacity underneath that road that exists today. On top of that, we are going to be installing automated traffic control gate arms so that in the event that a flood larger than the river or larger than the improved bridge can handle, gate arms come down and we'll put KUSI out of business because they won't be able to go take that video around Christmas time at Fashion Valley Road every year.
Nice. Actually, I might chime in. It's gonna be a soft bottom condition for that. So the environmental groups really like that rather than having a concrete lined channel under the road.
Right, right. Unions are still preoccupying folks on this call. They want to know, do they have a shot at as non-union contractors to make a bid?
Yeah, so look, Riverwalk's a big project. And I think, Pete, there's something like 12,000 construction jobs on this thing. And so what that means is there's opportunity for everyone to bid on this. So I think Craig's going to type my name in the chat. I was trying to figure out how to do it. But if you are a contractor and you're interested in Riverwalk, probably the best thing to do is just reach out to me. I'll talk you through how it might make sense to participate.
Okay. I think that makes people happy to have the opportunity. Quick question here about parking. Underground, on slab?
Yeah, it'll be a combination. And so, you know, the majority of the first phase is mixed use residential. So you'll need to have parking for the retail as well as the residential. What we know for sure is there's not going to be permanent surface parking out here. There may be temporary surface parking lots as the project phases out, but one thing that we were very cognizant of from the very beginning in the conceptual design of this plan is that despite the fact that it's more expensive, it's right for the placemaking and therefore right for the real estate long term to structure that parking. So there'll be podium residential here. There'll be likely wrap residential type 3 and type 5 residential out there. And so, you know, in addition to that, with the office, there'll likely be standalone structured parking as well.
Okay. This is a long question. I'm going to try to abbreviate. Someone asks that with the changed world, work at home, kids being taught at home, with work and school from home here to stay for some extent, do you see, and I don't even know what this means, IoT elements like solar metering and access control layering onto this wired and wireless connectivity? And do you have, and then the follow-up question is, do you have ground floor retail in the multifamily?
You want to take that, Eric? I saw you come off mute. You're chomping at the bit.
No, I just wanted to say go for it, Pete.
Well, absolutely. We believe in 5G and the Internet of Things and ultimate connectivity. I think it is, you know, imperative for us to think about that from the very beginning, and it's something that we're doing right now in conceptual design for the structures, but really the infrastructure at Riverwalk. You know, this is a project that'll build out over 15 to 20 years, and the world is going to change dramatically in those 15 to 20 years. So, you know, we're having conversations with you know, low voltage contractors right now, and we've talked with Wired Score on ensuring that this is a forward-thinking development from the very beginning. You know, simple things like putting in additional conduit that may be empty in the first place, but makes the installation of future fiber or whatever it is we use in the future much easier. You know, having a design that is seamless wireless connectivity throughout the entirety of the neighborhood. So when you step on site, you can go to the residential, you can go to your home in one of the residential buildings and hop onto the Wi-Fi. You leave your house, you go to the retail, you go to the parks, you're still on the same Wi-Fi. It's seamless connectivity. I think as we all work from home, we've all struggled with, you know, glitching out, getting kicked off, and it's not going to get better without making those investments. But also the world is, you know, we hopefully all get back in the office at some point, and normal is going to look different. So I think this has been a huge catalyst for all of us to realize that our connectivity at home has been less than ideal this whole time. So it's something we think a lot about.
Sticking to that theme, a viewer wants to know if you can talk about charging stations for electric vehicles.
Yeah, again, Eric, you want to take this one? I think that's another huge one.
That'll definitely be a part of our project. And almost everything we own has charging stations, and really it's a function of customer usage. And so what we aim to do is matched customer demand with supply, and we're seeing increasingly that demand is rising, and so that'll be absolutely a part of the design.
Absolutely. And you see what's happening with the state of California with, Governor Newsom's latest goals for moving to an electric fleet. And then you've seen the automakers move that way too. So again, we say that we're blessed to be designing this project right now, as opposed to having designed it in the past, because I do feel like this has been a huge paradigm shift and really the precipice of a lot of changes. And we're going to be able to design right into that.
Talk a little bit about your residential unit sizing plan. What do you have in mind? What type of housing options are you giving in terms of size?
It's a really interesting time in the world to ask that question, actually. I think this group probably knows the answers to these questions even better than we do, but there's been this trend for the past several years of decreasing unit size and developers going smaller and smaller and smaller, and we've absolutely seen that in the Valley. And now we're in this interesting moment in time where people are at home more, and so does a larger unit size make sense? And so, as Pete said, it's great that we get to design this now in a post-COVID environment. And so the subject of really the next year of design for us is optimizing that unit mix. And I think the answer is it's a mix. I think that there's still a market for the smaller, more efficient units, but I think you'll see more workspaces and desks and things like that integrated to the units. It may take up a couple more square feet, but make working from home much more appealing than in maybe a pre-COVID design unit.
Yeah, and one thing that's going to be very clear on that front is the connection to the outdoors. We're starting to coalesce around what people want in a post-COVID world, what science says is good in a post-COVID world. And, natural ventilation and connection to the outdoors is going to be imperative for the office space as well as residential space going forward. Eric,
when do you think you're going to have a better idea about the residential mix or the percentages of rent versus for sale? What's the time frame for that?
Well, so the first phase is, the next, several years. And so the first phase is going to be for rent. So I think, for sale components could be coming, let's call it, 5 or more years into the future. If we end up going that direction.
That's some time from now, yeah. But I understand why rental comes first. I would like to defer to you for the last 5 minutes or so. Anything, any one of you wish to add to the conversation, things that you'd hoped you were asked about, but it didn't happen?
I see one in near and dear to my heart is the river park that we're going to build here at this project. And so there were a couple of questions that came through on that front. The one that I'm looking at now talks about security in the park. And this is an imperative, topic for us and something we have from the very beginning thought a lot about. So the question is, will San Diego's Park and Rec Department take care of maintenance of the parks, or is this going to be something that the development helps with? And the answer is it's going to be something that both of us do. The river park will be a public park. As Eric mentioned, it's the largest park dedicated to the city of San Diego in over 50 years. But with that size, you have the risk of areas becoming tougher to maintain and tougher to keep security in. And so what we absolutely do not want is for this to become an unsafe, uninviting space. And we have a vested interest in that, and we have committed to providing ongoing funding for this river park into perpetuity to ensure that it's safe and beautiful, and really, the western anchor of what will be a gem of the San Diego River Trail, going from the beach all the way up to the headlands and stopping through the major parks at Riverwalk and at SDSU along the way. It's really going to be something special in the future. I believe wholeheartedly in that vision.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add on. I think the thing that I would say is I would like to give some credit to the city of San Diego. We've had a phenomenal development partner, if you will, in the city, and to their credit, they're very forward-thinking and quite progressive in terms of development. And it seems like Mayor Gloria intends to carry that torch on. But the Mission Valley Plan update was vital in making this a possibility. The various land development code updates, very important. And what we saw was a city of San Diego that was willing to roll up their sleeves and solve problems. And I think that's really great. So I just wanted to say that in this forum, because oftentimes, we tend to think about what could the city do better, and there's of course many things, and we have lots of feedback on that. But also, I want to give credit to the city for moving a project like this forward, and to the elected officials who voted on it and recognize the value that is being created. So we're grateful for that and thankful for it. And last thing I'll say is thank you to the BIA. We love the BIA.
Yeah.
And thank you for being at the forefront of all the legislative issues that affect the development of housing in San Diego. And we wouldn't be able to develop if it wasn't, Bora, for what you and Matt and the rest of the team do day in and day out to make sure that the city and the county are adopting policies that are conducive to the delivery of housing. And so we appreciate you and what you do.
Absolutely. It takes an army to get something like this done. Eric and I say that all the time. We're not smart people. We surround ourselves with smart people. Two of those are on the call with us today. Ted Shaw and Craig did an amazing job for us, kind of keeping the bumpers on our bowling alley, making sure that we're heading in the right direction. So, if you need entitlement help or approval help, those are two of the best.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much for sharing Riverwalk with us. We learned a lot today. Folks have been given information how to follow up with you. If they can't get through to you because they didn't get the email address correctly, they can email us at BIA. And we will wait for the PowerPoint reduction file, and so that anybody who wants to take another look at it so that we can share that. Alternatively, you post it on your website or have it available upon request. Thank you very much, everybody. Good afternoon, and thank you for tuning in to the BI's webinars. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.